The champagne flute shattered against the marble floor, and in that crystalline moment, I watched my sister Emma glide through the reception hall doors wearing a wedding dress more expensive than mine. Not a white dress, a full bridal gown complete with a cathedral train and a crystal-encrusted bodice that caught every light in the room. Her blonde hair was swept into an elaborate updo with actual orange blossoms woven through it. She'd even commissioned a custom veil. The music stopped. 200 guests turned in their seats. My new husband David's hand tightened on mine, and Emma smiled. It was the same smile she'd worn at my college graduation when she'd announced her engagement 5 minutes before I walked across the stage. The same smile from my job promotion dinner when she'd revealed she was pregnant. The same smile that had haunted my deathbed 6 months ago. Except I wasn't dead anymore. I was reborn, standing at my own wedding reception for the second time, and this time I knew exactly what came next. In my previous life, this moment had destroyed me. I'd spent the rest of the evening in the bathroom crying while Emma held court, accepting congratulations from confused guests who didn't know whose wedding they were attending anymore. The photos had been ruined, my marriage had started with humiliation, and it had only gotten worse from there. But this time, I didn't cry. This time, I laughed. "Emily," David whispered, concerned. "Are you okay?" I turned to him, this beautiful man who in my past life I'd pushed away with my pain and insecurity until he'd left me. This man who, in my previous timeline, Emma had seduced and married within a year of my divorce. "I'm perfect," I said, and I meant it, because this time, Emma wasn't wearing just any wedding dress. She was wearing the dress, the one I'd spent 3 weeks subtly manipulating her into buying, the one I'd praised in every bridal magazine I'd left strategically around Mother's house, the one I'd expressed fake devastation over not being able to afford, knowing Emma would snap it up just to twist the knife. The dress that, in exactly 45 minutes, would split down the back seam in front of everyone, revealing the tacky hot pink shapewear I'd anonymously had delivered to her house with a note saying it was from her secret admirer who couldn't wait to see her in it. But that was just the appetizer. I squeezed David's hand and walked forward to greet my sister, my smile genuine for the first time in years. "Emma," I said warmly, embracing her, "you look unforgettable." I should explain how I got here, standing at my second wedding to the same man, armed with the knowledge of my first disastrous life and a burning desire to rewrite every wrong. My name is Emily Carson. Well, Emily Warren now for the second time. And I died at 32 years old, alone in a studio apartment I could barely afford, my body ravaged by the stress-induced illness the family's doctor had repeatedly told me was all in my head. The story of my first life is a simple one. I was the unwanted daughter. My mother, Patricia, had me at 19 with a man who disappeared before I was born. She'd spent my entire childhood making sure I knew I'd ruined her life, destroyed her figure, stolen her youth. When I was 5, she married Richard, a wealthy investment banker, and had Emma a year later. Emma, the golden child. Emma, the planned baby. Emma, who looked just like Mother with her blonde hair and blue eyes, while I had my unknown father's dark coloring. From the moment Emma could understand, Mother made sure she knew she was special, and I was there. A mistake to be tolerated, a servant to be used, a shadow to make Emma's light shine brighter. I was 11 when Mother first made me give Emma my birthday present, a bicycle I'd been dreaming about for a year. Emma had wanted it, and Emma's happiness is more important than your selfishness, Emily. I was 14 when I had to drop out of the school play because the rehearsals conflicted with babysitting Emma. Family comes first. Don't be so dramatic. I was 17 when I had to decline my first choice college because Mother refused to fill out the financial aid forms. "You'll go to community college and live at home. Emma will need help when she starts high school." By 18, I understood my role. I was the help, the built-in nanny, maid, and emotional punching bag. Richard largely ignored me. I wasn't his daughter, and he had no interest in pretending otherwise. He gave me a roof over my head and barely concealed disdain. Mother gave me orders and criticism. Emma gave me nothing but contempt, learned from our mother's masterclass in cruelty. But I survived. I worked full-time while taking classes. I scrimped and saved. At 23, I finally had enough to move out, get my own place, and finish my degree. Mother didn't speak to me for 6 months, furious that I'd abandoned the family. Then came my first wedding. David Warren had been a light in my darkness. We'd met at a coffee shop where I was working my third job. He was kind, successful, and somehow saw something in me beyond the exhausted girl pulling double shifts. He proposed after a year, and I said yes, crying with relief that someone finally chose me first. Mother had insisted on planning the wedding. "You have no taste, Emily. You'll embarrass us all. Let me handle it." I'd been too tired to fight. She'd picked everything: the venue, the flowers, the dress, all while complaining about the cost and reminding me that Emma's wedding would be so much more elegant. I should have known Emma would find a way to ruin it. The white dress stunt had been devastating, but it was just the beginning. The photos were unusable. Guests were confused. My mother had actually laughed it off as Emma being spirited and suggested we take some sister photos with both of us in the wedding dresses. The marriage had limped along for 3 years. David grew distant, exhausted by my family drama that I couldn't seem to escape. Mother called constantly with emergencies that required my help. Emma developed a habit of showing up at our apartment at all hours, helping herself to our food and belongings, treating our home like her personal storage unit. When David asked for a divorce, I wasn't even surprised. I was just tired. Emma married him 11 months later. Mother was the maid of honor. I'd spiraled after that. Lost my job, lost my apartment. My health deteriorated, but every doctor Mother sent me to said it was anxiety, depression, psychosomatic. You just need to stop being so negative, Emily. I died alone on a Tuesday morning in March. The landlord found me 3 days later when the rent was late. And then I woke up. I was 26 again, sitting in my old apartment, the one I'd shared with my roommate before meeting David, staring at my younger face in the mirror. 7 years had been erased. I had my whole life back, and I had something else. I remembered everything, every betrayal, every humiliation, every moment of casual cruelty from the people who were supposed to love me. I'd been given an unfair advantage, and I was going to use it. The first thing I did was avoid the coffee shop where I'd met David. I wasn't ready to see him yet. I needed to fix myself first, to become strong enough to keep him this time. The second thing I did was cut contact with my family. Mother called within days, of course. Emma needed help moving into her new apartment. Could I come over this weekend? "No," I said, the word tasting like freedom. "I'm busy." "Busy? Doing what?" "Emma needs you, Emily. Don't be selfish." "I have plans," I said firmly. "Emma is 20 years old. She can move herself." Mother's voice went icy. "I see. So this is who you are now, abandoning your family." In my past life, that tone would have made me crumble. This time I smiled. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just not available. Have a good weekend, Mother." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but I felt electric with power. The calls continued, escalating in desperation and anger. I ignored most of them. When I did answer, I was pleasant but firm. No, I couldn't babysit. No, I couldn't loan Emma money. No, I couldn't come to Sunday dinner and help with dishes. I was busy building my real life. I'd aced my degree program the first time through, but this time I was strategic. I already knew which professors would be important connections, which classes would actually matter for my career, which internships would lead to real opportunities. I networked aggressively, applied for positions I knew would open up, and by the time I was supposed to meet David, I was already making decent money at a marketing firm, which is when I allowed our paths to cross. I knew his schedule, I knew his habits, I knew he got coffee at the same shop every Tuesday and Thursday morning. I knew he took his coffee black and always ordered a blueberry muffin he never finished. I happened to be there on a Thursday, dressed in my best professional attire, radiating confidence I'd spent 6 months building. He noticed me immediately. "Haven't I seen you here before?" he asked, which was a lie. We'd never crossed paths in this timeline. But it was his opening, his way of starting a conversation. "Maybe," I said, smiling. "I come here sometimes when I need to escape my office." We talked for 20 minutes. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. This time, I wasn't a desperate, exhausted girl grateful for scraps of attention. I was a woman who knew her worth, who had boundaries, who had a life he wanted to be part of. Our relationship progressed naturally, but I was always careful. I didn't introduce him to my family for 4 months, and when I did, I laid the groundwork first. My family is complicated, I told him. My mother and sister, especially, they have a way of making everything about them and they don't respect boundaries. I love them, but I've had to create some distance for my own mental health. That sounds really mature, David said. It must have been hard. It was, but necessary. I just wanted to prepare you because they might try to test you, test us. He squeezed my hand. We'll handle it together. When I finally brought David to meet them, I watched Mother and Emma size him up with predatory interest. Emma, 21 now and even more beautiful than I remembered, turned on her charm full blast. "Oh my God, Emily, he's gorgeous," she whispered loudly enough for David to hear. "How did you land him?" "Personality," I said sweetly. You should try it sometime." Mother's dinner was predictably theatrical. She criticized my outfit, my career choice, my decision to wait to have children. She fawned over David, asking inappropriate questions about his income and family background. Emma spent the evening finding excuses to touch his arm, lean close, laugh at his jokes. David was polite but distant. On the drive home, he was quiet. "That was," he started. "Awful," I finished. "I know. I'm sorry. That's why I don't see them often." "Your sister was really forward." "Emma thinks every man in the world wants her. It's how Mother raised her." I took a breath. "Look, if this is too much, if my family is too much, I understand. But I need you to know they don't control my life anymore. I won't let them." David pulled over, turned to me, and kissed me softly. "Your family doesn't scare me off," he said. "You're worth it. You're worth dealing with a difficult mother and a flirty sister and whatever else comes, okay?" I believed him because I already knew he'd meant it. In my first life, it had been my inability to set boundaries that drove him away, not the family itself. This time would be different. We got engaged after a year, just like before, but this time I planned the wedding. Mother was furious. "You're going to embarrass yourself, Emily. You have no sense of style. At least let me help with the venue." "The venue is booked. Everything is booked. You're welcome to attend as a guest." "As a guest? I'm your mother." "And Emma can be a guest too. I'm not having a bridal party." The truth was more calculating than that. I'd studied Emma's patterns, her psychology, her need to be the center of attention. I knew exactly how to manipulate her into the revenge I'd been planning since the moment I woke up reborn. I'd chosen a dress, a beautiful but understated lace gown, and made sure to complain about it to anyone who would listen. "It's fine," I told Mother during one of her increasingly rare calls. "I mean, it's not the dress I really wanted, but that one was $15,000, way out of our budget." $15,000 for a dress? That's obscene. "I know, but it was so beautiful. Italian designer, hand-beaded, this incredible cathedral train. But it's fine. My dress is nice, practical." I then left bridal magazines around Mother's house during my obligatory monthly visits, each one accidentally open to features on Alessandra Fontini, the designer of my dream dress. I'd sighed wistfully over photos. I'd mentioned how Emma would look stunning in that style. The seeds were planted. I'd also made sure Emma knew the wedding date well in advance. I'd even sent her a save the date that was slightly more elaborate than anyone else's, embedded with subtle psychological triggers I'd learned in my marketing career. Phrases about being remembered and making a statement and unforgettable moments. 3 weeks before the wedding, I'd had lunch with Emma, something I'd initiated, playing the olive branch card. "I want to fix things between us," I'd said, which was technically true. I was fixing them my way. "I know we've never been close, but you're my sister. I'd really like you at my wedding." Emma had been surprised but suspicious. "Mother said you weren't having a bridal party." "I'm not, but that doesn't mean you're not important to me. I was actually hoping you'd do a reading during the ceremony. Something about family or love or sisterhood." Her eyes had lit up. Really? You want me to have a special role? Of course, you're my only sister. The reading was real. I'd asked our cousin Jennifer to do it. But Emma didn't need to know that yet. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma had called me, unusually excited. Em, you'll never believe what I found. I was shopping with Mother and we found the most incredible wedding dress on sale. The designer was Alessandra something. I remembered you mentioned her. It was originally 15,000, but they had it marked down to 4,000 because it was a sample. I bought it. My heart had raced with vicious joy. You bought a wedding dress? Emma, you're not even engaged. I know, but it was such a deal, and it's so beautiful. I'll find a reason to wear it. Maybe I'll wear it to your wedding. Wouldn't that be fun? We could take sister photos, both in wedding dresses. That's a really unique idea, I'd said carefully. Mother must have been excited. Oh, she thought it was hilarious. She said I'd definitely make a statement. Yes, she would. Because the dress Emma had bought wasn't just any Alessandra Fontini sample. It was specifically the dress I'd anonymously reported to the boutique as having a manufacturing defect in the back seam, a defect I'd carefully researched and confirmed existed in a batch of sample dresses from that season. The boutique had verified it, marked the dress for return to the designer, but somehow, through an anonymous tip and a helpful sales associate I'd bribed, the dress had ended up on a secret sample sale rack for 24 hours, exactly when I knew Emma and Mother would be shopping. The defect was subtle enough that casual inspection wouldn't reveal it, but under the stress of wear, particularly the stress of walking, sitting, and standing repeatedly at a formal event, the seam would give way, catastrophically. I'd also arranged for the anonymous delivery of the hot pink shapewear with the note about a secret admirer. Emma, ever convinced of her own irresistibility, had apparently decided to wear it under her dress, ready to reveal to the admirer who she assumed was one of David's groomsmen. But the modifications to my revenge plan didn't stop there. I'd hired a specific photographer, one I knew from my previous life had a strict policy about image ownership and a particular hatred for wedding drama. I'd briefed her extensively. My sister has a history of making scenes. If she does anything inappropriate, please document it thoroughly. Those photos don't go in the main album. I'd also hired a videographer I'd strategically chosen because I knew from his website that he specialized in candid, unfiltered wedding moments. He was positioned to catch everything. And I'd invited several people Emma and Mother didn't know were coming. 3 reporters from local society blogs who owed me favors from my marketing work, a family therapist who'd agreed to observe and provide professional documentation of behavior patterns, and, most importantly, Richard's boss and wife. Richard, my stepfather, had largely ignored me throughout my first life. But in my second life, armed with knowledge of his company's future, I'd made some strategic stock tips that had paid off spectacularly for several of his colleagues. Colleagues who'd mentioned me to Richard in glowing terms. Richard, ever the social climber, had suddenly decided I was worth acknowledging. His boss, Harold Morrison, was a family man with 3 daughters and very strong opinions about how women should be treated. I'd made sure to have lunch with Harold's wife, Margaret, several times over the past year. I'd carefully, subtly painted a picture of my relationship with my mother and sister without ever explicitly complaining. Family can be so complicated, I'd said during one lunch. My mother means well, but she and my sister have a very close bond that sometimes feels exclusive. Margaret, perceptive and kind, had read between the lines. All the pieces were in place. Now I just had to let Emma destroy herself. The ceremony itself went perfectly. Emma attended in normal guest attire. She was saving her dramatic entrance for the reception. Jennifer did the reading beautifully. David and I exchanged vows I'd written with 6 years of hindsight, promising to protect each other, to communicate honestly, to never let outside forces divide us. When he kissed me, I knew this marriage would last. The reception began smoothly. Cocktail hour, dinner service, the first dance. I watched Emma growing increasingly agitated as the evening progressed, and she remained just another guest. She'd thought she'd have a special role. She'd thought I'd ask her to give a toast, or at least acknowledge her publicly. I did neither. Finally, unable to contain herself any longer, she made her move. The dress entrance. She'd timed it for maximum impact, waiting until dinner was cleared and guests were mingling. The DJ had just announced the cake cutting was in 15 minutes. She swept through the doors like a bride herself, and the reaction was everything I'd hoped for: confusion, shock, uncomfortable murmurs. David's mother gasped. His sister said something sharp under her breath. Harold Morrison's expression hardened immediately. I walked forward to greet Emma, and as I embraced her, I whispered in her ear, "Perfect timing. The photographer is getting everything." She pulled back, confused, but I was already guiding her further into the room, positioning her exactly where the videographer had the best angle. "Everyone," I announced, my voice carrying across the room. My sister Emma wanted to make sure this night was unforgettable. Let's give her our attention. Emma preened, interpreting this as permission to have her moment. She launched into an impromptu speech about how beautiful weddings were, how she was so happy for me, how she'd wanted to celebrate the occasion in style. "And you certainly have," I said, still smiling. "Tell me, Emma, what made you decide to wear a full bridal gown to someone else's wedding?" The room went silent. Emma laughed nervously. It's just fashion, Em. Don't be so serious. I thought it would be fun. Sisterly bonding." "Sisterly bonding," I repeated slowly. "Like when you convinced me to give you my first car because yours wasn't nice enough? Or when you told everyone at my college graduation that I'd only gotten honors because I'd slept with my professors? Or, and this is my personal favorite, when you showed David's mother those fake pregnancy tests and told her I was trying to trap her son?" Emma's face went white. Those events had happened in my first life, but she didn't know I remembered them. In this timeline, I'd prevented most of them, but I documented evidence of her attempts. I never, that's not, Emma stammered. "Oh, you did?" I said pleasantly. "I have the texts, the emails, the recorded phone calls." I didn't actually, but the bluff was working. "But that's old history. Let's talk about today. About the choice to wear white, specifically to wear a wedding dress more expensive than the bride's, to someone else's wedding." "What does that say, Emma?" Mother stood up abruptly. "Emily, stop this right now. You're embarrassing yourself." "Am I?" I turned to her. "Mother, did you know Emma was planning this?" "It's harmless fun. You're overreacting as usual, always so dramatic and sensitive." "Mrs. Morrison," I said, addressing Harold's wife directly, "as a mother of daughters, what would you think if one of your girls did this at another daughter's wedding?" Margaret Morrison stood, her face stern. "I would be appalled. This is cruel and narcissistic behavior." "Exactly." I turned back to Emma. "But here's the thing, Emma, I'm not upset. I'm actually grateful. You see, in trying to humiliate me one more time, you've done something wonderful. You've shown every single person here exactly who you are. And they're going to remember this forever." "You're insane," Emma hissed. "You're—" The dress ripped. The sound was spectacular. A long, tearing shriek of fabric as the back seam finally gave way under the stress of her agitated movements. The dress split from the top of the zipper to the bottom of the train, revealing the hot pink shapewear in all its tacky glory. Emma screamed, people gasped, some laughed, the photographer's camera clicked rapidly. Emma tried to hold the dress together, but the split was too large. She spun around, trying to flee, and the cathedral train tangled around her legs. She stumbled, caught herself on a table, and knocked over a glass of red wine that splashed down the front of the white dress. It was carnage. Mother rushed forward, trying to help, but Emma was hysterical now, shrieking about how this wasn't supposed to happen, how the dress was designer, how someone must have sabotaged her. "Sabotaged you?" I asked innocently. "Who would do that?" Emma's eyes locked on mine, and for just a moment she saw the truth. She saw that I knew, that I'd planned this, that I'd won. "You," she breathed. "You did this." "I wore an appropriate dress to my wedding," I said simply. "You made your own choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." Security, which I'd briefed extensively about my sister's history of dramatic scenes, gently but firmly escorted Emma and Mother out of the reception. Emma was still shrieking about revenge, about lawyers, about how I'd pay for this. The room was silent for a moment after they left, then David's sister started clapping. Within seconds, the entire room erupted in applause. Harold Morrison approached me, his expression thoughtful. "That took courage," he said. "Standing up to family is never easy." "Sometimes it's necessary," I replied. He nodded. "Richard has mentioned you in passing, but I don't think he understands what an impressive young woman you are. I'd like to speak with you about your career sometime. I think someone with your strategic thinking would be an asset to our consulting division." I smiled. I'd be honored. The rest of the evening was perfect. We cut the cake. David and I danced. Guests congratulated us and shared their sympathy about my difficult family situation. Several people mentioned how gracefully I'd handled things. The society bloggers wrote their pieces, not mocking me, but excoriating Emma's behavior as the most narcissistic wedding stunt of the decade. But Emma's humiliation was just the beginning. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling. The dress incident went viral. Someone had recorded Emma's speech and the subsequent disaster on their phone and posted it to TikTok. Within 48 hours, it had 10 million views. The comments were savage. "Main character syndrome has never been so spectacularly punished." The universe said, "Not today, Satan." When karma works overtime. Emma's social media accounts, usually full of carefully curated photos and desperate thirst traps, were flooded with mockery. She tried to control the narrative, posting a tearful video about how I'd always been jealous of her and had orchestrated her humiliation. It backfired spectacularly. "So you admit you wore a wedding dress to someone else's wedding?" One comment read, with 50,000 likes. She deleted all her social media within a week. But the social fallout was nothing compared to the professional consequences. Emma had been working as a junior marketing associate at a mid-sized firm, a job she'd gotten through nepotism and Richard's connections. The viral video came to her employer's attention, specifically to the attention of the company's HR director, who happened to be passionate about workplace professionalism and ethics. An investigation was launched, not because of the wedding incident itself, but because several of Emma's colleagues came forward with complaints about her behavior at work. Apparently, she'd been taking credit for others' work, bullying junior staff, and generally creating a toxic environment. She was fired 2 weeks after my wedding. Mother was beside herself with rage. She called me repeatedly, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails about how I'd destroyed Emma's life and how I was dead to her. I saved every voicemail and had them transcribed. They would prove useful later. Richard, meanwhile, was feeling the pressure at work. Harold Morrison had indeed taken an interest in me, inviting me to several company events and making it clear that he found me impressively professional. In contrast, he'd started asking Richard pointed questions about his family values and whether he'd properly supported both his daughters. Richard, who'd ignored me for 20 years, suddenly wanted to have lunch. "Emily," he said, uncomfortable in his expensive suit, "I think we should talk about your relationship with your mother and sister." "What about it?" I asked pleasantly, sipping my water. "Patricia is... she's very upset. And Emma is struggling. This situation has gotten out of hand." "Has it?" Emma wore a wedding dress to my wedding, Richard, on purpose. To humiliate me. How exactly is it out of hand for her to face consequences? He shifted. "She's young. She made a mistake." "She's 22. That's old enough to understand basic social boundaries. And this wasn't her first mistake with me, just her most public one. Your mother thinks you're being vindictive. My mother has spent my entire life teaching Emma that she can do whatever she wants without consequences, especially if it hurts me. I'm done enabling that. If you want to have a relationship with me, I'm open to it, but it will be on my terms, and it will require you to actually see me as a person, not just as mother's inconvenient first daughter." Richard was quiet for a long moment. "Harold has mentioned you several times. Says you have real talent." "I do. He's considering you for a position in the consulting division." "I know, I've been interviewing." Richard blinked. "You have?" "Yes. I'm qualified, Richard. I've worked hard to build my career. Harold recognizes that. The question is, do you? He didn't answer, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. If Harold Morrison was championing me, opposing me could be career limiting. I'll talk to Patricia, he said finally. Try to make her see reason. Good luck with that. But Mother wasn't interested in reason. She was interested in control, and control was the one thing I would never give her again. She escalated instead. 3 weeks after my wedding, she called David directly at his office. This is Patricia Ashford, she told his assistant, Emily's mother. I need to speak with my son-in-law about a family emergency. David, concerned, took the call. Mother spent 30 minutes telling him that I was mentally unstable, that I'd always had problems, that I was vindictive and cruel to Emma for no reason, and that he should be careful because I had a history of making things up for attention. She didn't know I'd warned David this might happen. I'd told him about my mother's tactics, her gaslighting, her attempts to isolate me. When David came home that night, he looked tired. Your mother called, he said. I know, she told you I'm crazy, didn't she? How did you know? Because it's what she always does when I set boundaries. She tries to convince everyone around me that I'm the problem. I took his hands. David, I need to ask you something important. Do you think I'm vindictive, cruel, mentally unstable? What? No, of course not. Then why would my own mother say that about me? He was quiet, processing. I don't know. Because she's protecting Emma. Because in her mind, Emma is perfect and I'm the scapegoat. I've always been the scapegoat. And when the scapegoat finally refuses to play along, the whole family system falls apart. This is really messed up, Em. I know, and I'm sorry you're getting dragged into it. If you want me to handle my family differently— No, he interrupted. You're handling it exactly right. I can't believe your own mother would do that. Believe it. And it's going to get worse before it gets better. I was right. Mother's next move was to stage a family intervention. She called David's parents, my college roommate, my boss, and several extended family members, inviting them all to a lunch at her house to discuss Emily's concerning behavior. Most people declined, confused by the invitation. But a few showed up, either out of curiosity or obligation. I wasn't invited, obviously. This was supposed to be an ambush where Mother would paint me as the villain and gather allies to pressure me into making things right with Emma. What Mother didn't know was that David's mother, Catherine, called me immediately after receiving the invitation. Your mother just invited me to some kind of intervention about you, Catherine said. What on earth is going on? I explained the situation, calmly, factually, including the wedding dress incident and Mother's subsequent campaign against me. That woman is unhinged, Catherine said flatly. Listen, I'm going to that lunch, but not for the reasons she thinks. I'm going to tell her exactly what I think of her parenting. Catherine, you don't have to— Oh, I want to. Trust me. The lunch was apparently spectacular. Catherine reported back with obvious satisfaction. Mother had prepared a whole presentation about my lifelong jealousy of Emma, my manipulative behavior, and how I'd orchestrated Emma's humiliation. She'd even created a slideshow with photos of Emma and me throughout our childhood, all carefully selected to show Emma as the loving sister and me as sullen and distant. Catherine let her finish. Then she stood up. Patricia, she said, I've heard everything you've said, and I have some thoughts. First, your daughter Emma wore a full wedding dress to Emily's wedding. That's not normal. That's not high spirits or fashion forward. That's deliberately cruel. Second, you clearly knew about it in advance, which makes you complicit. Third, the fact that you're here trying to gaslight everyone into thinking Emily is the problem tells me everything I need to know about why Emily has distanced herself from this family. My Aunt Carol, Richard's sister, apparently spoke up next. I've been watching this dynamic for years, Patricia. You've always favored Emma, always. Emily has been treated like an afterthought her entire life, and then Now that she's finally standing up for herself, you can't handle it. Uncle James chimed in. Remember Emily's high school graduation? Emma threw a tantrum because she didn't get enough attention, and you made Emily give her graduation party to Emma to cheer her up. That's not normal parenting. The intervention collapsed. People left. Mother was furious, but she still wasn't done. Her final play was the most desperate. She tried to turn my maternal grandmother against me. Grandma Rose was 92, sharp as a tack, and the only family member from Mother's side who'd ever treated me with consistent kindness. She lived in an assisted living facility 3 hours away, and I visited her monthly. Mother apparently drove up to see Grandma Rose and spent several hours telling her version of events, painting me as a vindictive daughter who'd publicly humiliated Emma for no reason. Grandma Rose listened quietly. Then she asked Mother to leave. She called me that evening. Emily, dear, your mother came to see me today. I heard. Grandma, I want you to know, I want to tell you a story, she interrupted gently. When your mother was 16, she got pregnant with you. Your father was a boy from the wrong side of town, and my husband was furious. He wanted Patricia to give you up for adoption. I fought him on it. I insisted we support Patricia and her baby. But from the moment you were born, Patricia resented you. She saw you as the reason her life got hard, not as a person deserving of love. I was silent, absorbing this. I've watched her treat you terribly your entire life, Grandma Rose continued. I've spoken to her about it repeatedly. She doesn't listen. She never has. And when Emma came along, Patricia saw a chance to have the life she thought she deserved, the perfect family with the legitimate husband and the planned baby. You became the reminder of her past, and Emma became her redemption. Why didn't you ever tell me this? I asked, my voice breaking. Because I kept hoping Patricia would grow up, that she'd realize what she was doing. I see now that was foolish. She came here today expecting me to side with her, to help her manipulate you back into line. Instead, I'm going to tell you something I should have told you years ago. You owe that woman nothing. Not your time, not your energy, and certainly not your peace of mind. I was crying now. Thank you, Grandma. There's more. I'm 92 years old, Emily. I'm not going to be around forever. I've been working with my lawyer to update my will. Everything I have, my savings, my investments, the house I still own in Vermont, it's all going to you. Not a penny to Patricia or Emma. Grandma, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Patricia has Richard's money. Emma has had every advantage. You've built yourself from nothing despite them, not because of them. My estate is worth about $3 million. It's yours. My lawyer will be in touch with the details. $3 million. In my first life, I'd never known Grandma Rose had that kind of money. She'd lived modestly, saved carefully, invested wisely, and she'd apparently been planning to leave it all to me even then, but I'd died before she did. This time, I'd live to inherit it, but more importantly, I'd live to have this moment with her, this validation that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the problem, that someone from my mother's own family saw the truth. I love you, Grandma Rose, I whispered. I love you too, sweet girl. Now go live your life and stop worrying about people who don't deserve you. 6 months after my wedding, my life had transformed completely. I'd accepted the position at Morrison Consulting that Harold had offered. The job was challenging, well paid, and put me in a completely different professional sphere from my family. I was traveling, leading projects, building a reputation as a strategic thinker. David and I were thriving. Our marriage was everything my first one hadn't been. Communicative, supportive, passionate. We'd started looking at houses, talking about the future, making plans that didn't include any interference from my mother or sister. Emma, meanwhile, had spiraled. Unable to find work after the viral video and her firing, she'd moved back in with Mother and Richard. The job market was brutal for someone with her reputation. Every potential employer Googled her name and found the wedding dress disaster. She'd tried to rebrand, even changing her name on social media to Emma Ashford Blake, using her middle name. It didn't work. The internet never forgets. Mother had tried to help by leveraging Richard's connections, but most people were wary. Nobody wanted to hire the girl who'd worn white to her sister's wedding, especially after the additional details of her workplace behavior had leaked. By month 8, Emma was working part-time at a boutique retail store, a job that would have horrified the old Emma who'd dreamed of being an influencer and socialite. Mother blamed me, of course. She'd stopped calling, which was a relief, but she'd started sending letters, long, rambling manifestos about my cruelty and how I'd destroyed Emma's life. I kept every letter, filed and dated, documentation. Richard had started trying to build a tentative relationship with me, clearly motivated by career considerations, but also, I sensed, by some genuine regret. He'd attended several family therapy sessions with me, sessions I'd insisted on as a condition of any relationship. The therapist had been illuminating. "Richard," Dr. Chen had asked during our third session, "can you describe Emily's childhood from your perspective?" Richard had shifted uncomfortably. "She was Patricia's daughter from a previous relationship. I didn't really see it as my place to get involved in her parenting." "Did you see it as your place to provide for her? Shelter, food, education?" "Of course. She lived in my house. But did you see her as your daughter?" Long silence. "No," Richard finally admitted. "I saw her as Patricia's responsibility." "And how do you think that felt for Emily, watching you be a father to Emma but not to her?" Richard had looked at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time. "I didn't think about it," he said quietly. "I should have. But I didn't." It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement, which was more than I'd ever gotten from Mother. "I can't change the past," Richard continued, "but I'd like to try to be better now, if you'll let me." "Why?" I asked bluntly. "Why now? Because your boss likes me? Because I'm successful? Where were you when I was 14 and emptying the dishwasher at midnight after babysitting your daughter all evening? Where were you when I was 17 and Mother refused to help with my college applications? Where were you at my first wedding when Emma wore that dress and you said nothing?" "I was a coward," Richard said, and his voice cracked slightly. "I was a coward who took the easy path. Patricia made it clear early on that Emma was ours and you were hers, and I went along with it because it was simpler. I'm ashamed of that now." Dr. Chen turned to me. "Emily, what do you need from Richard to consider a relationship with him?" I'd thought about this carefully. Honesty, boundaries. If I tell you Mother is behaving inappropriately, I need you to believe me and support me, even if it's uncomfortable. I need you to acknowledge publicly that you failed me as a stepfather, and I need you to stop enabling Emma's behavior toward me. "I can do that," Richard said. "Can you? Because that means if Mother tries to manipulate you into pressuring me to reconcile with Emma, you'll say no. It means if Emma asks you to intervene on her behalf, you'll refuse. It means choosing to support me even when it makes your home life difficult." Richard had gone quiet again, clearly weighing the cost. Finally, "Yes, I can do that." Time would tell if he meant it, but I was cautiously optimistic. People could change sometimes when the cost of not changing became too high. Mother, however, was unchangeable. The final confrontation came at Grandma Rose's 93rd birthday party. I'd organized it at a beautiful restaurant, inviting the extended family, some of Grandma Rose's friends from the assisted living facility, and a few key people from my life, David, his parents, Harold Morrison, and his wife. Mother and Emma were not invited. Mother showed up anyway. She swept into the restaurant with Emma trailing behind her, both dressed formally, both wearing expressions of righteous determination. "This is a family event," Mother announced to the room, "and we are family." Grandma Rose, seated at the head of the table in her wheelchair, raised one imperious hand. "Patricia, Emma, you are not invited." "Mother, that's ridiculous. This is my daughter's birthday. Party for you. Of course we're invited." "Emily organized this party," Grandma Rose said calmly, "and she chose not to include you. I support her decision." Mother's face flushed red. "This is insane. Emily has turned you against your own daughter." "No, Patricia. You did that yourself with 30 years of watching you treat one granddaughter like a princess and the other like a servant." Grandma Rose's voice was steel. I've stayed quiet too long, but I'm 93 years old and I'm done being polite about your failures as a mother. The room was silent. David's hand found mine under the table. Emma spoke up, her voice shaking. Grandma, please, Emily has been so cruel to me. She ruined my reputation, got me fired. You ruined your own reputation, I interrupted, standing. I didn't force you to wear a wedding dress to my wedding. I didn't make you bully your coworkers. I didn't create the person you are, Emma. Mother did, by teaching you that you could do anything you wanted without consequences as long as it hurt me. That's not true, Emma's voice was rising. You've always been jealous of me. You couldn't stand that I was prettier, more popular, more loved. More loved? I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Emma, you were more loved. That's exactly the problem. You were loved and spoiled and enabled. I was tolerated and used and blamed. And now you're 23 years old with no job, no prospects, and no idea how to function without Mother smoothing your path, and you still think I'm the problem. Emily, Mother's voice was dangerous now. How dare you speak to your sister that way? She's not my sister, I said clearly. Not in any way that matters. A sister supports you, celebrates with you, treats you with basic respect. Emma has never done any of those things. She's just a person I happen to share DNA with who has spent her entire life trying to take from me and hurt me. You're being dramatic, Mother said. Everything I did was to what? To protect Emma? To make sure she never had to face consequences? To keep me in my place? I shook my head. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm done. I'm done explaining, done defending, done hoping you'll suddenly see me as a person who deserves love. I'm just done. If you turn your back on this family, Mother started. What family? I asked. Show me the family, Mother. Show me where you ever treated me like family. Show me the birthdays where Emma didn't get more presents. Show me the holidays where I wasn't doing the dishes while you and Emma watched movies. Show me the one time, just one, where you chose me. Silence. That's what I thought, I said quietly. Grandma Rose, I'm sorry your birthday party turned into this. Don't apologize, Grandma Rose said, her eyes bright with tears. I should have done this years ago. Patricia, Emma, you need to leave. This is my party in my honor, and I don't want you here. You're choosing her over us? Mother's voice was shrill with disbelief. Your own daughter? I'm choosing to support the granddaughter who has been neglected and abused by my daughter for her entire life, Grandma Rose said. Yes. Emma started crying then. Not the manipulative tears I'd seen her use so many times, but real ugly crying. I don't understand, she sobbed. Why does everyone hate me now? I didn't do anything that bad. And in that moment, I almost felt sorry for her because she genuinely didn't understand. Mother had so thoroughly warped her sense of normal that Emma truly couldn't see how her behavior was wrong. But that wasn't my problem to fix, not anymore. You need to leave us, I said firmly. Both of you, or I'll have the restaurant staff call security. Mother drew herself up, her expression venomous. You'll regret this, Emily. When you need family, when something goes wrong in your perfect little life, don't come crying to me. I won't, I promised. I haven't needed you for a long time. They left, Emma still crying, Mother rigid with rage. The party continued. Grandma Rose gave a short speech thanking me for organizing it, thanking everyone for coming, and making it clear that she was proud of the woman I'd become, despite significant obstacles. Harold Morrison gave a toast to family chosen, not just family born. David's mother hugged me tightly and whispered, "You're braver than I knew." And I felt for the first time in either of my lives, completely free. The next 18 months were a masterclass in living well as the best revenge. Grandma Rose passed away peacefully in her sleep 3 months after her birthday party. True to her word, her will left everything to me. $3 million, the Vermont house, her jewelry, her stocks and bonds. Mother contested the will immediately, of course. She hired a lawyer and claimed that I'd manipulated Grandma Rose, that she'd been mentally incompetent, that the will was invalid. The legal battle was expensive and exhausting, but I had something Mother didn't: documentation. I had emails from Grandma Rose spanning 5 years. I had letters. I had testimony from her doctors confirming her sound mind. I had the therapist from the assisted living facility who'd witnessed our relationship. Most damning of all, I had Grandma Rose's own video recording, made 6 months before her death with her lawyer present, in which she explained clearly and rationally why she was leaving everything to me. "Patricia has failed as a mother," Grandma Rose said in the video, her voice clear and firm. "She has treated Emily with cruelty and neglect while spoiling Emma into helplessness. I have tried to intervene. I have tried to reason with Patricia. She refuses to change. This is my final attempt to balance the scales and give Emily the support she should have had all along." The judge threw out Mother's contest. The will stood. I inherited everything. I used part of the money to buy a house for David and me, a 4-bedroom colonial in a great neighborhood, with a yard and a garden and space to grow. I invested another portion wisely, setting up accounts for the children we were planning. I donated a significant amount to organizations supporting young women from abusive families. And I kept the Vermont house. Grandma Rose had left me a letter with the will, explaining that the house had been her sanctuary, her escape from her own difficult marriage. She wanted me to have a place that was completely mine, untouchable by anyone from my past. I visited it often. David and I spent weekends there, hiking and reading and planning our future. My career continued to flourish. Harold Morrison became a mentor, guiding me toward increasingly significant projects. I was promoted twice in 2 years. My name started appearing in industry publications. I was building a reputation entirely separate from my family name. Richard, surprisingly, kept his word. He attended therapy sessions with me regularly. He acknowledged his failures publicly, including at a family reunion where he told our extended family that he owed me an apology and an explanation for his years of absence from my life. He also stopped enabling Mother's behavior. When she demanded he pressure me to give Emma some of the inheritance, he refused. When she tried to convince him I was being unreasonable, he told her bluntly that she'd created the situation through her own poor choices. It cost him. His marriage to Mother grew increasingly strained, but he stuck with it, and I gradually learned to trust him, at least partly. Emma's trajectory went the opposite direction. Unable to find professional work and unwilling to accept that her reputation was permanently damaged, she'd bounce between retail jobs, each one ending badly. She'd tried to become an influencer again under various pseudonyms, but her content was derivative and desperate. By her 25th birthday, she was living at home, underemployed, and deeply bitter. Mother, meanwhile, had become increasingly isolated. Her friends had heard the stories. Extended family had chosen sides, and most had chosen mine. Her own mother had explicitly rejected her in favor of me. Richard was emotionally distant. She'd built her entire identity around being Emma's champion and my adversary, and she'd lost. I heard through Aunt Carol that Mother had started therapy herself, though I doubted it would help. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge is broken. I felt no satisfaction in their downfall, no triumphant joy. Just peace. They were no longer part of my story. They were background noise, irrelevant to the life I was building. 2 years after my second wedding, David and I hosted a small dinner party at our new house. The guests included David's family, Harold and Margaret Morrison, Dr. Chen, who'd become a friend, Aunt Carol and Uncle James, my boss from the marketing firm, and a few close friends. No, one from Mother's immediate orbit. No Emma. Just people who'd supported me, believed in me, seen me. During dessert, David stood and clinked his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, smiling at me. 2 years ago, I married the most remarkable woman I've ever met. She's brilliant, strong, and kind. She's taught me what real resilience looks like. And she's made me the happiest I've ever been. But there's another reason I'm standing up tonight, he continued. Emily and I have some news. In about 6 months, we're going to be parents. The room erupted in congratulations. Catherine was crying happy tears. Harold was shaking David's hand vigorously. Aunt Carol hugged me tightly. I'm so happy for you, she whispered. You're going to be an amazing mother, better than you had. That was the key, wasn't it? Breaking the cycle, being different, choosing love. Later that night, after everyone had left and David and I were cleaning up, he asked me something he'd never quite put into words before. Do you ever think about reaching out to them? Your mom and Emma? I was quiet for a moment, really considering it. Sometimes I think about it, I admitted. Not because I miss them or want them back in my life, but because I wonder if there's some version of a relationship where they acknowledge what happened and try to change. And? And then I remember that change requires wanting to change. It requires admitting you were wrong. They've never done that. Even now, even with everything that's happened, they see themselves as victims of my cruelty. I shook my head. They haven't learned anything. They just want things to go back to how they were, with me playing my role as the scapegoat. You deserve better than that. I know, that's why I chose this instead. I gestured around our beautiful kitchen, our home, our life. This is better. David pulled me close. I love you. I love you too. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday in April, 6 months later. We named her Rose after my grandmother. She had David's eyes and my dark hair. She was perfect. The day after Rose was born, Mother called the hospital. I don't know how she found out. Probably through Aunt Carol or someone in the extended family network. I was in my hospital room holding Rose when David handed me his phone with a significant look. Your mother, he said quietly. I can tell her you're not available. I looked at the phone, then at my daughter, then back at the phone. For a moment, I imagined answering. Imagined Mother cooing over her grandchild. Imagined some fairy tale reconciliation where she suddenly became the mother I'd always needed. But fairy tales aren't real. People don't change just because you want them to. Tell her congratulations on becoming a grandmother, I said. And tell her we're not receiving visitors. David handled it. I heard him speaking calmly but firmly. Patricia, Emily appreciates the sentiment, but she's not ready for contact right now. The focus needs to be on her recovery and the baby. Yes, I understand this is difficult. If Emily wants to reach out in the future, she will. I need to go now. Take care. He hung up and sat beside me on the bed. She asked if she could visit tomorrow. What did you say? I said you'd reach out if and when you were ready. He looked at me seriously. Are you okay? I know this is complicated. I'm okay, I said, and I meant it. I'm sad for the mother I deserve to have, but I'm not sad about the choice I'm making. Rose deserves to be surrounded by people who are healthy and safe and kind. Mother is none of those things. And if she changes, if she genuinely tries, then we can reevaluate. But I'm not holding my breath, and I'm not sacrificing my daughter's well-being on the possibility that a 60-year-old woman will suddenly develop self-awareness. David kissed my forehead. You're going to be an incredible mom. And I was. I knew exactly what not to do after all. I had a perfect blueprint of terrible parenting to avoid. Rose grew up surrounded by love. From me, from David, from his family, from the chosen family we built. She was celebrated, encouraged, supported. She never knew what it felt like to be second best. 5 years after my rebirth, I found myself at a coffee shop near my office, picking up my afternoon latte before a big presentation. The barista called my name, and as I reached for my drink, someone behind me said, Emily? I turned. It was Emma. She looked different. Older, obviously. She'd be 27 now, but also tired. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore retail worker clothes, a name tag that said Kara pinned to her chest. My heart clenched, not with pity exactly, but with something complicated. Emma, I said carefully. I saw you and I thought, maybe. She trailed off, uncertain. This wasn't the Emma I'd known, confident and cruel. This was someone who'd been broken by consequences. How are you? I asked, which was neutral enough. I'm okay. I work nearby, retail. She gestured vaguely. It's not what I planned, but it's honest work. That's good. Silence stretched between us, awkward and heavy. I wanted to say, Emma started, then stopped. Started again. I've been in therapy for 2 years now, and I'm starting to understand things I didn't before. About how I treated you, about what Mother taught me. I waited, not giving her anything. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Emma continued. I don't think I deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry, really sorry. Not because of what happened to me after, but because I'm finally understanding what I did to you. For years. I studied her face looking for manipulation, for the trap. But all I saw was exhaustion and what looked like genuine remorse. Okay, I said finally. Okay? I hear you. I appreciate you saying that. But Emma, I can't have you in my life. Much has happened. I've built something good now, something healthy, and I can't risk that. She nodded, tears welling up. I understand. I needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I'm trying to be better. Then I hope you succeed, I said, and I meant it. I hope you find a way to be happy that doesn't require hurting other people. Thank you, she whispered. I picked up my coffee and left. In the car, I sat for a few minutes, processing. David called, his timing impeccable as always. How'd it go? He asked, referring to my meeting prep. It went fine, but something else happened. I told him about Emma. How do you feel? He asked. Sad, I admitted. Sad for the sisters we could have been if we'd had a different mother. But not sad enough to let her back in. She made her choices. I'm making mine. That's fair. You don't owe her anything. I know, it's just weird. Seeing her like that, small. You're allowed to have complicated feelings. I love you, I said suddenly. I love you too. Now go nail that presentation. I did. I nailed the presentation, landed the client, got another promotion. Life went on, good and getting better. 10 years after my rebirth, I stood in the Vermont house, my house now, looking out at the mountains. David was in the kitchen making breakfast. Rose, now 5 years old, was in the living room watching cartoons. Our son, James, named after Uncle James who'd supported me, was napping in his crib upstairs. My career had taken me to the top of my field. I'd been featured in Forbes, Harvard Business Review, Fortune. I'd written a book about strategic thinking that had become a bestseller. I was successful beyond what I'd imagined in either life, but more than that, I was happy. Genuinely, deeply, peacefully happy. I had a husband who loved me, children I adored, work that fulfilled me, and friends who supported me. I had healed from the wounds of my childhood, not by getting revenge, though that had been satisfying, but by building something better. Mother and I had no contact. She'd reached out a few times over the years, birthdays, holidays, but always with strings attached. I'd love to see you if you'd just apologize to Emma. We could be a family again if you'd stop holding grudges. Why are you punishing your poor sister for ancient history? Never acknowledgement, never accountability, just demands that I return to my role. I blocked her number eventually. Some relationships aren't worth saving. Richard and I maintained a distant but functional relationship. He'd divorced Mother 3 years after my wedding, finally unable to tolerate her increasingly erratic behavior. He'd remarried, a kind woman named Susan who actually made him smile. He saw his grandchildren occasionally, always respectful of my boundaries. Emma, I heard through Aunt Carol, had moved to another state. She was working as a teacher's aide, still in therapy, apparently doing better. I was glad for her, in an abstract way, but I felt no need to reconnect. David came out onto the porch with 2 mugs of coffee. Penny for your thoughts? He asked, just thinking about how different this life is, I said, how close I came to never having this. He knew what I meant. We'd talked about my rebirth, my memories, my second chance. He was one of the few people who knew the whole story. Do you ever regret it? He asked. The way you handled things with your family? Some people would say you should have tried harder to forgive, to reconcile. Some people didn't live my life, I said simply. Forgiveness isn't about letting people hurt you repeatedly. It's not about subjecting your children to toxic people because they're family. It's about making peace with the past and choosing a healthy future. And have you? Made peace? I thought about it. Yes, I'm not angry anymore. I don't fantasize about revenge. I just don't think about them much at all. They're not part of my story anymore. Rose came running out onto the porch. Mommy, Daddy, can we go to the lake today? Absolutely, I said, scooping her up. Let's pack a picnic. As we headed inside, David's hand in mine, Rose chattering excitedly about swimming, I felt a wave of profound gratitude. I'd been given a rare gift, a second chance. I'd used it not just to avoid the mistakes of my first life, but to build something actively good. I'd protected myself, set boundaries, removed toxic people, and surrounded myself with love. I'd won. Not by destroying Emma and Mother, they'd destroyed themselves through their own choices, but by choosing to thrive despite them, by choosing happiness, by choosing over and over again to be different from what they'd tried to make me. The real revenge wasn't in Emma's public humiliation, or Mother's isolation, or their loss of control over me. The real revenge was this: a beautiful life they couldn't touch. 15 years after Rebirth, the book launch party for my third book was held at an elegant venue in Manhattan. I'd written about family trauma, recovery, and building chosen families, a memoir that had struck a chord with millions of readers who'd experienced similar betrayals. The room was filled with people who'd supported my journey. David, now a successful architect; Rose, 10 years old and already showing signs of her father's creative brilliance; James, 6, and full of sweet, earnest energy; Catherine and Harold, now both retired but still my champions; Dr. Chen, who'd written the foreword; colleagues, friends, the family I'd chosen. Richard was there too, with Susan. He'd become a surprisingly present grandfather, making up for lost time in whatever way he could. During the Q&A portion of the evening, someone from the audience asked the question I knew was coming. Do you ever speak to your mother or sister? No, I said simply, I don't. Do you think you ever will? I paused, considering my words carefully. I've learned that some relationships are like poisoned wells. You can't make the water clean just by wanting it to be clean. The source is contaminated, and while that's sad, it's also not my responsibility to fix. My responsibility is to my own well-being, to my children, to the people who have shown up for me consistently with love and respect. But they're family, the person pressed. Family is what you make it, I replied. The people in this room, they're my family. They chose me, and I chose them. That choice, that mutual respect and love, that's what makes family real. Shared DNA is just biology. The crowd applauded. After the event, as we were packing up, my publicist mentioned that someone had tried to get into the party earlier without an invitation. Who? I asked, though I already knew. Patricia Ashford. Said she was your mother and demanded entry. Security turned her away. I felt David tense beside me, protective. But I just sighed. Thank you for handling that, I told my publicist. Mother hadn't given up, even after 15 years. She probably never would. But that was her choice, her obsession, her problem, not mine. That night, back in our hotel suite, after the kids were asleep, David and I stood on the balcony looking out at the New York skyline. She tried to come tonight, he said quietly. I know. Does it bother you? A little, I admitted. Not because I want to see her, but because it's sad. She's wasted 15 years being angry instead of growing. She could have had grandchildren in her life, relationships with extended family, peace. Instead, she chose bitterness. That was her choice. I know, and I'm grateful I made different ones. He pulled me close. Me too. 20 years after Rebirth, Grandma Rose, my daughter Rose, now 15, sat across from me at the Vermont house, working on a school project about family history. "Mom," she said, looking up from her laptop, "can I ask you about your childhood?" I'd known this conversation was coming. Rose was smart, observant. She'd figured out that I had limited contact with my mother and none with my Aunt Emma. She'd asked occasional questions over the years, and I'd given age-appropriate answers. But now she was older, ready for more truth. "Of course," I said, setting down my own work. "What do you want to know?" "Why don't I have a relationship with your mom, my grandmother?" I took a breath. "Because she wasn't a healthy person for me to be around, and I made the decision to protect both myself and you kids from that unhealthy dynamic." "What did she do?" "She favored my sister over me, to an extent that was emotionally abusive. She taught my sister that it was okay to hurt me, to take from me, to humiliate me. And when I finally set boundaries and said I wouldn't accept that treatment anymore, she tried to manipulate everyone around me into thinking I was the problem." Rose was quiet, processing. "That must have been really hard." "It was, but it also taught me something important, that you can't have a relationship with someone who refuses to treat you with basic respect and kindness, even if they're family, especially if they're family, actually, because family relationships are the ones that can hurt us most deeply." "Do you think she's changed?" "I don't know. She's never acknowledged what she did wrong, never apologized genuinely, never shown that she understands why her behavior was harmful. Without that, there's no foundation for a relationship." Rose nodded slowly. "I think you made the right choice. You're a really good mom. I can't imagine you treating James or me the way she treated you." My eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sweetheart. That means everything to me." "Is that why you named me Rose? After Great-Grandma Rose who left you the house?" "Yes. She was the one person from my mother's side of the family who saw me, who valued me, who loved me unconditionally. I wanted to honor that." "I'm glad you did," Rose said. "And I'm glad you protected us from people who couldn't love you right." Later, telling David about the conversation, I marveled at how different parenting could be when you broke the cycle. "She gets it," David said. "She understands that love isn't just biology, it's action. You taught her that." "We taught her that," I corrected. "Fair enough." 25 years after Rebirth, I was 48 years old, sitting in a hospital waiting room when I got the call. Mother had had a stroke. She was in the ICU. Richard, who'd maintained occasional contact with her despite their divorce, had been listed as her emergency contact. He'd called to tell me. "I thought you should know," he said. "I understand if you don't want to come." "Is she going to make it?" I asked. "They don't know yet. The next 24 hours are critical." I sat with the phone in my hand for a long time after Richard hung up. David was beside me. We'd been at the hospital because James had broken his arm skateboarding, nothing serious, and he waited patiently for me to speak. "My mother had a stroke," I said finally. "Do you want to go see her?" Did I, after 25 years of no contact, of building a life without her, of healing from the wounds she'd inflicted? Did I want to see her now, possibly dying? "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me thinks I should. That I'll regret it if I don't. But another part of me knows that seeing her won't change anything. She's never going to be the mother I needed. Even if she survives this, even if she wants to reconcile, it won't undo the past." "You don't owe her a deathbed reconciliation," David said gently. "You don't owe her anything." He was right, but still, I went, not for her, for me, to close the chapter completely one way or another. Mother was unconscious when I arrived, hooked up to machines, looking small and fragile in the hospital bed. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just looking at her. Emma was there. I hadn't expected that. She looked up when she saw me, her expression guarded. We hadn't spoken since that brief encounter at the coffee shop 20 years ago. "Emily," she said quietly, I didn't think you'd come." "I wasn't sure I would either," I admitted, stepping into the room but keeping my distance from the bed. "How is she?" "Critical," They don't know if she'll wake up. Emma's voice was hollow. I've been here since this morning. I studied my sister. She was 45 now, lines around her eyes, gray streaking through her blonde hair. She looked worn down by life in a way that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with regret. How have you been? I asked, which felt absurd given the circumstances, but I didn't know what else to say. Surviving, Emma said. I teach second grade now in Ohio. I have a small apartment, a cat, a quiet life. She paused. I never married, never had kids. I think I was too damaged from how we grew up, how mother raised us. It was the first time I'd ever heard Emma acknowledge that our childhood had been abnormal, that mother's parenting had caused harm. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Don't be. It was my own choices that got me here. I spent so many years doing exactly what mother taught me, taking, hurting, putting myself first, and by the time I realized how wrong it was, I'd burned every bridge. She looked at me directly, especially with you. Emma, let me say this, she interrupted. Please, I've been in therapy for over 20 years now. I've worked through a lot, and I know that what I did to you was unforgivable. The wedding dress was just one incident in a lifetime of cruelty. I took from you, mocked you, tried to destroy every good thing you had. And I did it because mother taught me that your pain was entertaining, that you existed to make me look better. I was quiet, letting her continue. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Emma said. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that I understand now. What she did to both of us, me by spoiling and enabling, you by neglecting and abusing, it was all wrong. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. I'm sorry I became her weapon against you. Tears were streaming down her face now. These weren't manipulative tears. These were the tears of someone who'd spent decades confronting ugly truths about herself. Thank you for saying that, I said carefully. It means something, even now. But not enough to have a relationship, Emma said. It wasn't a question. No, I agreed gently. Not enough for that. Too much time has passed, too much damage was done. I've built a life that's healthy and peaceful, and I can't risk that, not even for the possibility of sisterhood. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. I understand. I just wanted you to know that you were right about all of it. And I was wrong. We stood in silence for a moment, both looking at the woman who'd created this dysfunction, this pain, this impossible distance between us. What will you do if she dies, Biden? I asked. Handle the arrangements, I guess. Sell her house, move on. Emma's voice was flat. I've been taking care of her for the past 5 years. She had early onset dementia, started forgetting things, getting confused. I moved back to help. I felt a flash of complicated emotion. Surprise, guilt, respect, sadness, all mixed together. You didn't have to do that. I know, but I needed to, not for her, for me. To prove that I could be the person I should have been all along. Someone who takes care of people instead of taking from them. She smiled sadly. She doesn't remember most things now. Doesn't remember you at all, actually. Sometimes she thinks I'm her sister. Sometimes she thinks I'm you. Does she? I hesitated. Does she ever express regret about how she treated me? No, Emma said bluntly. Even with dementia, even with her memories scrambled, she never expressed regret about you. I think that's just who she was, fundamentally. Incapable of seeing her own failures. I nodded slowly. That's what I'd needed to know, that even at the end, even with her mind failing, Mother had never changed, never grown, never seen me. I should go, I said. I have a family, Emma finished. I know, Richard mentioned you have 2 kids, that you're successful, happy. I am. Good, you deserve that. Emma's smile was genuine, if melancholic. More than anyone I've ever known, you deserve that. I started to leave, then turned back. Emma? For what it's worth, I think what you're doing, the therapy, the teaching, taking care of her despite everything, that takes strength, real strength. I hope you find peace. Thank you, she whispered. I left the hospital and drove home to my family, feeling strangely light despite the heaviness of the situation. Mother died 2 days later without regaining consciousness. Richard called to tell me. I thanked him for the information and asked him to let Emma handle the arrangements. You're not coming to the funeral? Richard asked, surprised. No, my presence would be dishonest. I'd be there out of obligation, not grief. She wasn't a mother to me, not in any real sense. I won't pretend otherwise, even in death. That's very pragmatic. It's honest. She valued appearance over truth her whole life. I won't participate in that, even at her funeral. I didn't go. David asked if I was sure, if I'd regret it, if I needed him to push me to go for closure. I got my closure 25 years ago when I chose to live without her, I told him. This changes nothing. Rose and James asked if we should attend, if they should meet their grandmother one last time, even if she was dead. No, I said firmly. You don't have to pay respects to someone who never respected me. You don't have to participate in rituals for someone who was never family in any meaningful way. Are you okay, Mom? Rose asked, her now adult perceptiveness cutting through to the real question. I'm fine, I said, genuinely fine. I feel peaceful, sad for what could have been if she'd been different, but not sad that she's gone. Does that make me a bad person? It makes you honest, Rose said, hugging me, and self-aware and healthy. 30 years after Rebirth, I was 53, sitting at a book signing for my 5th and final book, a comprehensive memoir about family trauma, rebirth, metaphorical in the public version, recovery, and building a life worth living. A young woman approached my table, maybe 22 or 23. She had tears streaming down her face. I just want to thank you, she said, her voice shaking. Your book saved my life. My mother is exactly like yours. The favoritism, the scapegoating, everything. I thought I was crazy. I thought it was my fault. But reading your story helped me understand that I deserve better. I cut contact 6 months ago, and I'm finally starting to heal. I took her hand. I'm so proud of you. That takes incredible courage. Did you ever doubt your decision? She asked. Did you ever think maybe you were too harsh? Sometimes, I admitted. But then I'd remember that my only other option was to let myself be destroyed to make them comfortable. And that's not a real option. You can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you for being honest about it, for not writing a story where the family reconciles and everything's perfect. Real healing doesn't always look like reconciliation, I said. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like walking away and never looking back. All of those are valid choices. After she left, I sat back and looked at the line of people waiting. Dozens of them, maybe 100, all holding my books, all with similar stories of family pain and the journey to heal from it. I'd written the books I'd needed when I was younger. Books that said it was okay to protect yourself, that you didn't owe anyone unlimited chances to hurt you. That family was about behavior, not biology, and the response had been overwhelming. That evening, David and I walked through Central Park, hand in hand, like we'd done 1,000 times over our 30 years together. Do you ever think about your first life? He asked. About what would have happened if you hadn't gotten your second chance? Sometimes, I said. I'd probably be dead by now, honestly. Or if not dead, then hollow. Going through the motions of existing but not really living. And Emma, your mother? They'd probably be fine. Not happy. I don't think Mother was ever capable of true happiness. But fine. Emma would have my husband, my house, my life. Mother would have her perfect daughter, validated. And they'd never think about me at all. That makes me angry, David said, quietly. It used to make me angry too, but now it just makes me grateful. I got a second chance to write a different story. Most people don't get that. Most people just get the one life, the one chance, and they have to make the best of it. I squeezed his hand. I got two lives, and I used my second one to build something beautiful. You did, he agreed. You really did. 35 years after Rebirth. Rose's wedding day was everything mine had been in my second life. Joyful, peaceful, surrounded by love. She married a wonderful man named Marcus who treated her with respect and adoration. The ceremony was small, intimate, just family and close friends. No one wore white except Rose. As I watched her walk down the aisle, radiant and confident, I felt overwhelming gratitude that I'd broken the cycle. Rose had grown up loved, secure, certain of her worth. She'd never known what it felt like to be second best, to be used, to be discarded. She'd never have to fight for her place in her own family. At the reception, Rose pulled me aside. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. But Aunt Emma tried to contact me a few weeks ago on Facebook." My heart clenched. What did she want? "To congratulate me on the wedding. To say she was happy for me. She said she understood if I didn't want a relationship, but she wanted me to know she was sorry for what she'd done to you. That she hoped I'd grown up happier than she had." "What did you say?" I thanked her for reaching out and told her that I appreciated the sentiment, but that I needed to respect your boundaries. That you'd made decisions for good reasons, and I supported them. I hugged my daughter tightly. "Thank you." "I love you, Mom. You protected me my whole life. From people who would have hurt us, from toxic patterns, from everything. I'm not going to undo that now." "You're allowed to make your own choices about Emma, you know. She's your aunt. If you want a relationship with her—" "I don't," Rose said firmly. "Not because you told me not to, but because I don't need that in my life. I have you, Dad, James, Marcus's family, our friends. I have everything I need. I don't need to invite dysfunction in out of some obligation to blood relation." I'd raised her well. Later, dancing with David, I looked around the room at the family we'd built. Biological, chosen, blended. Every person there was someone who'd earned their place through consistent love and respect. "What are you thinking?" David asked. "That this is what winning looks like," I said. "Not revenge, not seeing my enemies destroyed, just this. A beautiful life, a daughter who's healthy and happy, a family built on love instead of obligation." "The best revenge is living well," David quoted. "Exactly. Though the revenge part was pretty satisfying, too," I admitted with a grin. He laughed. "I love you." "I love you, too. For 35 years now, twice, 40 years after, but Rebirth. The final chapter. I was 63 years old, sitting on the porch of the Vermont house with David, watching our grandchildren play in the yard. Rose had 3 children now. James had 2, 5 grandchildren total, all healthy and happy, and completely unaware of the dysfunction that had marked my early life. I'd retired from my career at 60, having built a legacy in both business and literature. My books were taught in university courses on family psychology. I'd given countless talks about boundaries, healing, and choosing yourself. And through it all, I'd maintained my boundaries with my family of origin. Emma had reached out a few more times over the years, birthday cards, occasional emails. Always respectful, never demanding. I'd responded with brief thank yous, but never engaged beyond that. She'd created a life for herself in Ohio, teaching, volunteering, apparently genuinely trying to be better. I was glad for her, but she wasn't part of my life. Richard had passed away 2 years earlier. Heart attack, sudden and painless. I'd gone to that funeral, not for closure, but because Richard had genuinely tried to make amends in his final decades. We'd never been close, but we'd achieved something like peace. At the funeral, I'd seen Emma from a distance. She'd looked at me, I'd nodded acknowledgement, and that had been it. No dramatic confrontation, no tearful reconciliation. Just 2 women who shared DNA and a traumatic childhood, living separate lives. "Do you have any regrets?" David asked now as we watched the sun set over the mountains. I thought about it carefully. "No, not about the big choices. I wish I'd been given a different childhood the first time around. I wish Mother had been capable of love. I wish Emma and I could have been real sisters. But given what actually happened, given who they actually were, I made the right choices." "Even the revenge?" the wedding dress incident? I laughed. Especially that. Was it petty? Absolutely. But it was also the moment I took my power back. The moment I stopped being a victim and started being the author of my own story. You've certainly done that, David said, pulling me close. You've written a hell of a story, Emily Warren. We've written it together, I corrected. Our granddaughter Lily, Rose's oldest, 7 years old, came running up to the porch. Grandma, come play with us. I stood, taking her hand, feeling the simple joy of being wanted, being loved, being chosen. This was my legacy. Not the businesses I'd built or the books I'd written, important as those were. My real legacy was breaking the cycle. It was raising children who knew they were valuable, who had healthy boundaries, who understood that love was action, not obligation. It was building a family where everyone felt safe, seen, and celebrated. It was proving that you could survive abuse and still become someone kind. It was showing that walking away from toxic people wasn't cruel, it was necessary. As I played with my grandchildren in the golden evening light, David watching from the porch with that smile I'd known for 40 years across 2 lifetimes, I felt complete. I'd been given the rarest of gifts, a second chance at life. And I'd used it not just to avoid the mistakes of my first life, but to build something actively, deliberately beautiful. Mother had tried to make me small, to keep me in my place, to ensure I existed only as a supporting character in Emma's story. Instead, I'd become the hero of my own story, and I'd won, not because Mother died isolated or because Emma lived with regret or because my family of origin fell apart. I'd won because I was happy, because I was loved, because I'd survived, healed, and thrived, because I'd taken the poison they tried to feed me and transformed it into medicine for others, because I'd chosen over and over and over again to be different. That was my revenge. That was my victory. That was my rebirth. A life lived well, surrounded by love, free from the chains of toxic family obligation. And it was more than enough. It was everything. Epilogue. On the day of my 75th birthday, surrounded by my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, James's daughter had just had her first baby, I received an unexpected package. Inside was a letter and a small box. The letter was from Emma. She was 72 now, retired from teaching, living in a retirement community. Dear Emily, I know you probably didn't expect to hear from me, and I promise this isn't an attempt to insert myself into your life. I just wanted you to have this. I've been cleaning out Mother's things. Yes, I kept them all these years. Boxes of photos and documents I couldn't quite let go of. In one of the boxes, I found this. It's a letter Mother wrote but never sent, dated about a year before she died. Her dementia was progressing, but she had moments of clarity. This was apparently written during one of them. I thought you should have it, not because it will change anything, but because truth matters, even painful truth. I hope you've had a beautiful life, Emily. You deserved one. Emma. With shaking hands, I opened the smaller box. Inside was a letter in Mother's handwriting, shaky but legible. Emily, I am writing this during a moment of clarity, and I know these moments are becoming rare. Soon I won't remember anything at all. I want you to know that I remember. I remember every cruel thing I did. Every time I chose Emma over you. Every time I made you feel small to make her feel big. I told myself I was correcting the mistake of having you, that I was making sure Emma had the life I should have had, but the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I was jealous of you. Even as a baby, you were so self-sufficient, so resilient. You didn't need me the way Emma did. And instead of being proud of that strength, I resented it. I punished you for it. Emma needed constant validation, constant attention. She made me feel necessary. You made me feel inadequate. So I chose her, over and over. And I taught her to hurt you because your pain made me feel powerful. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you were right to leave, right to protect yourself, right to build a life without me. I destroyed the possibility of loving you because I couldn't handle my own inadequacy. That's my failure, not yours. You were always enough, Emily, more than enough. I just couldn't see it. Patricia. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. David, now 80 and still my anchor, held my hand. What do you need? I need, I paused, processing. I need to be grateful that I didn't wait for this, that I didn't sacrifice my peace hoping she'd eventually see me. You made the right choice, he said. I know, but it's still sad. She had this awareness, at least briefly, and she still never reached out. She still chose her pride over connection. Some people can't change, even when they know they should. I carefully folded the letter and put it back in the box. I'm glad Emma sent this. Not because it changes anything, but because it confirms what I always knew, that my mother's inability to love me wasn't about me. It was always about her. That night, surrounded by the family I'd built, I made a toast. To second chances, I said, raising my glass. To breaking cycles. To choosing love. To knowing when to walk away and when to hold on. And to the truth that family is what you make it, not what you're born into. To Grandma, my grandchildren chorused, and I smiled, knowing that I'd done it. I'd taken the broken, painful beginning I'd been given in both lives, and I'd transformed it into something precious. I'd won. Not by destroying my enemies, though that had been satisfying, but by refusing to let them destroy me. By building a life so full of love and joy that their absence didn't even leave a hole. By becoming exactly who I was meant to be, despite them, beyond them, without them. That was the real revenge. That was the truest rebirth, and it was worth every single choice I'd made along the way.